mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 8 of Showtime's Yellowjackets, entitled Flight of the Bumblebee. I finished this episode, I should say, probably about maybe half an hour or so ago, and I've kind of been reflecting on the title because, it's called Flight of the Bumblebee, and, I look at, there's meaning to take away from the flight and the bumblebee aspect, I think, right? Because flight, pretty obvious. We saw what happened to Laura Lee. That ties in directly through the episode. And then Bumblebee, you look at as like at least I look at as like a lesser form of a Yellowjacket. You think Yellowjacket, you think scary. I don't want to say badass, but you think of something that's intimidating, more dangerous. And you look at a bumblebee, even the term bumblebee, you could just say bee. But I think when you say bumblebee, it almost makes it cartoonish to a degree, right? And it makes me wonder if this title and this episode is kind of like an indictment on when in these circumstances, relying on faith or signs or symbols, good luck, all of these things that aren't really, tangible in real life, and saying like, you need to not be concerned with signs and faith and luck, and you need to be pragmatic, and you need to make decisions based on facts and evidence and do what's best for your safety. And that sort of thing. And that, I don't know if that's where they were going with it, but that's kind of an interesting interpretation, I think, because not that I don't agree with it. I actually do. But I think it's just an interesting take because, there's going to be so many people who presumably watch this who, given these circumstances, might also be ones like Laura Lee who might pray, who might look for signs. But then it also comes off kind of passive, right? Because you have Lottie, at some point, Lottie asked her, I think it was when they left or something like that, like, what can we do or something. I can't remember what the question was, but Laura Lee said something like, they're in God's hands now. And that sort of kind of passive and accepting, like, whatever happens kind of thing. When you're living in like the real world, living your normal life, that kind of thing, like it's all in God's hands, can be something that you can't really be held to because life just kind of happens. But when you're stuck in the wilderness, and it's like you survive or you don't, having a passive, like, whatever will be kind of approach, I think is dangerous. And I wonder if that's like kind of what the show is trying to tell us, that while Laura Lee has all the right intentions, her approach of leaving things in God's hands and looking for signs and running based on faith is not how you survive these types of situations. And that's what happens to Laura Lee. She asked for a sign, a bird lands in front of her, and I guess that means I gotta take flight. I guess that's how she looked at it. And she made the decision to try and fly the plane. And right before the plane explodes, which is a sick fucking scene, but right before the plane explodes, her bear catches fire. And I'm wondering not at the time, because at the time I'm just watching it, but like as it ended, it made me wonder if the burning bear was supposed to be like the Moses burning bush, like the bush, like I'm like, is God supposed to talk to her through the bear? But that doesn't end up happening. But I do still think that there's some sort of maybe like theological tie-in that I'm missing here, because I'm not a religious person at all. Admittedly, I'm an atheist, but I grew up in the church. My grandmother was the pastor of my church, so for my formative years, I was in the church. I just, grew up and I looked at things my own way, and I made the determinations that I made. But I don't know. I wonder, I'd be interested in hearing maybe like the writers or the creators talk about, why it was named the way it was and what we're supposed to take away from Laura Lee having this kind of like positive, but albeit dangerous kind of mindset when you're in these kind of survival situations. And is it really them trying to tell us like this isn't the kind of circumstance where you want to have a passive let God handle shit kind of viewpoint. And Laura Lee ultimately paid the ultimate price for having that. And I just think that's an interesting potential place to be, not a place, but an interesting takeaway from this episode, if that's what we're meant to be taking away from it. This could just be me being fucking like atheist fucking Mike, just like I see a whole bunch of anti-religious sentiment in here. But I mean, the episode opens with Laura Lee. I think even this is symbolic because I really feel like the before I finish this thought makes me lean even more into the idea that the creators and the writers are saying that this religious shit is stupid because the episode opens with Laura Lee diving headfirst to the shallow end. Like, and I don't know, man. It's just it seems to really paint Laura Lee as somebody who's not very bright, and she gets rescued and she tells the lifeguard he saved her life, and he's like, no, man, God, that was all God, that wasn't me. When again, the actuality is no, it was you. Like, even if you're religious and you feel like God worked through you, God didn't teach you how to perform CPR. You learned that from somebody else. So it's like, if you want to be on a theological kind of trip, right? You could say like, oh no, God was working through me. But at the end of the day, you did save her life. And then she was at Mary Magdalene summer camp. Who named a summer camp after Mary Magdalene? Like, I don't know. I really do feel like this episode was kind of meant to be an indictment on religion, but I don't know. Like I said, that could just be me putting my own thoughts into how I interpret this episode. But I thought the Laura Lee stuff was really good, and it got me thinking. Like I said, I was like, shaving, getting ready for this to do this video, and all these thoughts going through my head. I spent the entirety of my time thinking about this episode, thinking about what they were trying to tell me with the Laura Lee storyline and the Bumblebee and all this kind of stuff, and it all kind of feels like a real indictment on that mindset. But the other thing about this episode that I think was important that we were to take away from it is teenage pettiness. We see a lot of that here. We see it with Travis and Natalie in a very kind of overt sort of way, and then we see it with Jackie and Shauna in kind of a much more subtle, but I think much more true to teenage behavior sort of way. So, but before I get into that, I want to talk about some of the other things that happened in this episode that I thought were worth mentioning, and then I'll close out with those things and some thoughts. So right away, we find out that Van actually survived this encounter. She wakes up and she's being like burned like a fucking Night's Watch person from Game of Thrones. So she doesn't turn into a White Walker. She's being burned, and well, they're starting to burn her, and she wakes up. And I don't know what the purpose of Van living serves long term, other than my hope that we see an adult Van with a gnarly fucking scar on her face, and we're gonna know it's Van. Like we're presumably gonna get a high school reunion in one of these, in either the next episode or the last one. And it would. I mean, I wouldn't be too mad if Van shows up with like a gnarly fucking scar. Like, that'd be kind of cool. But for whatever reason, she's not dead, and I immediately thought maybe bringing her back was to help kind of like motivate Laura Lee's character to have more of a reason to take this flight. Because if she's looking at it just like but prior to that, she had no motivation. She didn't know about Shauna being pregnant, so she would have had no motivation to like really push, trying to fly that plane. But when Van comes back all messed up, it's like, okay, she needs medical attention. Then the Shauna stuff comes out. So maybe that could be the purpose. But I would still like to see Van with a gnarly scar. We move a little bit closer toward finding out Adam's true identity. I talked about that theory last week, and why I had kind of been sitting on it, because I'd known about it for a couple weeks, but I didn't feel like I wanted to really talk about it without evidence in the show to support it. But last week, I felt the show really leaned into that and gave a whole lot of clues. So I talked about that theory last week, but we did move closer in that direction of finding out who Adam is. What I saw, which I mentioned in my video last week, from the preview, I'm like, why would they give away Adam being, well, not necessarily Adam being Javi, but they definitely were giving away, or at least seemingly giving away, Adam being the person who is blackmailing them. And sure enough, Shauna discovers glitter in her closet. Her safe is empty. So how did Jeff get the fucking not Jeff? What if that's like a Adam? I just threw myself off with this thought in my head. But okay, so let me rewind. She finds the glitter and her safe empty. And that was in the trailer for next week on last week's episode. And I said, why would they give away Adam being the guy who did this? Why would they give that away in the trailer? I'm like, it's got to be a red herring. Maybe that's not her closet. Maybe that's not her hand that sees the glitter. Like, maybe it was cutting away to make us think that, but it really wasn't. But that it was played straight up. She finds the glitter in her closet and she finds her safe empty. What tripped me up when I was saying that was me mistakenly saying Jeff instead of Adam. And it made me wonder if like maybe this is the fake out. Like maybe Jeff is somehow onto this. Like, what if Jeff is the person who's blackmailing them? What if whatever this woman he's meeting with, what if she's somehow involved? What if that was Jeff's glitter that was in there and he would know the combination of her safe, maybe, or at least be able to guess it, and maybe he took all that stuff out. And then she goes to confront Adam at the end of the episode, and we don't see anything after that. And we've already established that Adam has lied about at very least what school he went to, but nothing else can be found of him on the internet from Shauna or Callie. But it makes me wonder if, this whole time I've been saying that Adam / potentially Javi is also behind all of these things, that the blackmail and all that. But what if it's separate? Like, what if Adam is Javi and he is obsessed with her and he is lying about who he is, but it's only because he's obsessed with her? But Jeff is the person doing the blackmailing. Like, I mean, that would be a nice little trip up, right? Because like he's not, we know Jeff is up to I don't want to say up to no good, but he's up to something. He leaves a lot. He's meeting with this woman. He's claiming this inventory thing. What if that's all a smokescreen and Jeff is the one who's doing the blackmailing for whatever reason? What if he found out something? I still think there's a possibility he could be in cahoots with Jackie, even though I feel like that's a bit extreme, but I don't know. It just made me wonder now that I said that, like, what if Jeff is the person who's behind it? Because we still don't know what he's up to. He's up to something. And yeah, it's possible that Adam could be Javi and the person doing the blackmailing could be someone else. But that took an interesting turn. She badgered Adam about not going to the school that he claimed he went to, and then he gave a whole lot of really good answers to other questions. And if he is Javi, do we know if maybe he has an additional brother? I don't think so, because I'm thinking back to the first episode when they were all leaving to get on the plane. It was just Javi and Travis. We know obviously Travis is in Ann Arbor going to school for colon. He's not a colon rectomy doctor or some shit with a book called Anus. Like we know Travis is in that because we know Travis is dead. But yeah, I don't know. Now I'm curious again. The Adam Javi who's sitting the blackmail thing. I've changed my theory like 17 times at this point. Not really. I've changed like the nuances of it, but I haven't really changed it that much. Misty, as if she wasn't interesting enough already, we see that like Misty, as crazy as she is and as weird and fucked up as her ways of doing things are, that she actually really does have everyone's best interest at heart. We saw her last week kind of watching over them, and then it really comes, I don't want to say comes full circle because there still could be more, but this week we see her essentially risk her life to save Natalie. Like that's not an I'm not being hyperbolic in saying that. Like she rushed in there and snorted up whatever the fuck drug that was. She had no idea, just to prevent Natalie from relapsing. And like as crazy as it is for her to have a secret camera in Natalie's place and to be watching her and doing, like, as weird as that is, it's like one of those things where it's like you're going about it the wrong way, but at the end of the day, your heart is in the right place. And it makes me, again, just kind of look at Misty differently. Like, I think Misty is such a complex character, and I love Misty as a character, particularly the adult version, but teenage Misty didn't get much to do this week. But I don't know, I look at Misty a little bit differently, again, more nuance and context to her character. Like, she actually really does care about them. It's not all about wanting that attention. And I thought that was an interesting development to give us this week. So I talked about petty teenage behavior being, I think, another focal point in this episode. And we see it with teenage Natalie and Travis. Travis finds out from Jackie that Natalie actually did have sex with someone else who she didn't mention, someone named Bobby Farley, who, if you remember from episode 4, it was Bobby Farley who gave Travis the nickname Flex that he hates because he had some sort of back surgery. Bobby saw the scar and started this ongoing joke that he had a rib removed so he could suck his own dick. That was the basic premise of it. So Travis hates the nickname. He hates Bobby Farley. And then he finds out from Jackie that Natalie actually had sex with Bobby Farley, and this was not one of the people that she mentioned when she ran off the list of two people of who she had sex with. And Travis goes to confront her about it. And it is also kind of like fragile masculinity type shit. But at the end of the day, he is still a teenager. Like, I don't fault him too much for behaving immaturely when he's, 16? Something like that. But, he confronts her and is like, you didn't tell me about this. Maybe I was right about you and that, I shouldn't have been with you. He essentially kind of dumps her. And like I said, at the end of the day, it is also fragile masculinity shit. He dumps her because he's jealous over her having sex with somebody else in the past who he doesn't like. And, as a teenager, that's a valid way to feel. Me, as an almost 40-year-old, looks at that and like, fucking grow up, guy. But, like, I can't fault Travis for that. And then I can't fault 16-year-old Travis for that. And then Natalie comes back with another low blow, no pun intended, about how, it's probably good that he couldn't get his dick hard because it would have been harder. This whole situation would have been harder if they had actually had sex. So their thing ends pretty nasty in this moment. I don't think it's going to stay that way. I think they're probably going to reconcile at some point. And like, if that was how things ended, I don't think Natalie would be so broken up about Travis dying after the fact. Of course, he's going to be broken up about it, but to that degree, I don't think so. He had the picture of them in his place. So I feel like they reconcile at some point, but it ends on some petty shit in this episode. And then in other petty news, I really like the way they handled the Jackie and Shauna confrontation this week. We ended last week with Jackie reading her journal and crying. So we know that Jackie knows, probably, I'm assuming that Shauna wrote about Jeff in her diary. She knows that Shauna's actually pregnant by Jeff. And in the moment of Laura Lee saying, I'm bailing out on this plane, I need to take, not need to take, but Van needs some serious medical attention, so I'm going to go try to, save everybody. Jackie puts Shauna in a position to have to admit to everybody that she's pregnant. And Ella Purnell, I believe that's her name, the actress who does this, does a really good job, I think, of very, very subtly showing a level of satisfaction in having to do this. And then Shauna confronts her about it while they're working on the plane. It's like, why you put my shit out there? And she comes off, it's so fake. Like, it's like, you just really needed to be helped, and I don't think this is the best time for us to be keeping secret. Like, she gives this like really kind of like sweet response as if it was for you, but she also gives it with that, I want you to know this isn't, I want you to be able to suspect that this isn't the real reason that I did that. And I think that comes across as Shauna gets that. So like that little petty teenage female cattiness, I think that was what drove that reveal right there. And I like how the actress kind of played it off as like I'm doing what's best for you. But like when she was forcing Shauna to say it, after Shauna admitted it, I swear I saw like a look of satisfaction in Jackie's face, and I thought that was a really good move by Ella Purnell. So yeah, really fun episode. I'm really kind of tripping over the Laura Lee thing. I'm really wondering if I'm reading too much into this, or if this really is kind of like an indictment on the survival mindset. If your mindset is faith and looking for signs and all of that stuff versus looking at things from like a technical aspect. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the petty stuff. We found out Thaisa admitted to her wife about the sleepwalking. And now that I'm actually shifting into my thoughts, I liked how they kind of like mirrored past Shauna and Thaisa with present day Shauna and Thaisa. They're both in the bed, sleeping together, not sexually, but sleeping together in the same way they slept together in the attic at the cabin, sharing secrets just as they did in the attic at the cabin. Thaisa admitting to Shauna that she has been sleepwalking again in present day, just like she revealed it to Shauna in the cabin about why that's what happened with Van. So I like how they mirrored that relationship in present day versus cabin day. My other thought, it looks like we're going to get a high school reunion next episode. I mentioned that earlier. I think that's going to be explosive. We find out that the coach is gay. And I find that interesting because, Nat asked him, like, you have a boyfriend or something. He's like, yeah, I think he said his name was Pete. Did I write it down? Paul, who was a writer. And only thing I could think about is that makes it even more interesting that he had like 8 million condoms on this trip. On this trip to Seattle. Like, what did this guy have planned? Like, did he just break up with Paul before? Because he said Paul asked him like move in with him or something. He said no. Like, did he maybe just break up with Paul before they went on this trip? And he was just like, yo, I'm gonna fuck everything. And he's put like 40 billion condoms in his bag. And that was gonna be like his way of getting over this breakup. I don't know. But the 8 million condoms is way more interesting now that I find out that he had a boyfriend that he presumably broke up with. Way more interesting. Oh, and the last thing was about the comparison between Shauna and Taisha, present day versus during the cabin. So that's all I got. We've got 2 more episodes left. Really excited to see what happens in these final 2. The show's been kicking ass. I've been loving you guys' comments. I haven't been able to respond to them. I still am really, really going to try to get caught up on responding to comments. I do it every now and then when I catch it. But right now it's kind of like a daunting task of like, how many hundreds of comments do I have unaddressed? But I'm looking at them. Not all of them, but like I see them. I get push notifications, so I see them every now and then. And keep them up. I'm going to try to reply to them at some point. And I'll see you guys next week for the penultimate episode of season 1. Peace.